Hello everyone, Shrek is here. You might have a high-resolution monitor or TV, a Quad HD or a more common 4K screen. There are almost no TV channels broadcasting in 4K, you need to buy subscriptions or download movies in 4K, which weigh 20 or 30 gigabytes. In general, most of the time your screen does not open, you do not see this high definition, but you would like to. But at the same time you have a budget gaming computer, in the sense that it does not pull new games even there in Quad HD on minimum settings, and Full HD is given to it with difficulty. For example, you have one of the video cards that are going to retire from gaming, which I talked about in this video, or you want to buy one of them and play to the full for the missed gaming years. So, if there are no new games in high resolution, then older games, we can say classic games that you would not mind going through or replaying, sometimes take on a new life in high resolution. Also, if you have not played the games that I will show below, due to age, for example, this is an example from the series, old, does not mean soap. I have a video card that is absolutely not suitable for 4K gaming, in terms of the fact that according to the stated characteristics, its maximum resolution is Quad HD. In fact, there is no image from this card in 4K, and this is GT1030, so, the monitor does not show the image in 4K itself. We will not go into why this happens, and if your card supports 4K, you don't need this information. But I will make 1030 work in 4K, because my monitor is special, or rather it is a capture card that can set 4K resolution, get it from the card and process it. Another important point in high-resolution games is how you connect the card to the screen. It is possible that you have HDMI 1 and 4, in this case, you can only play 4K at a frequency of 30 Hz. HDMI 2 and 0 and DisplayPort will allow you to roll in 4K 60 FPS. Okay, let's get to the tests. I respect the series of Assassin's Creed, although it sausages in all directions, but what not to take away, the graphics in this series of games has always been decent. Assassin's Creed the first, Quad HD resolution, maximum settings. But the video I have in Full HD 30 FPS, so all attention to the monitoring numbers. Possible image defects are a feature of the capture system, not the video card. By the way, recording is performed without loss of performance. The video card load is rarely below 90%, but the FPS is kept above 60. And how I love the memory load. Video memory is only occupied less than a half, and RAM is 2.5 gigabytes. Yes, I have Windows 10 LTSC, which in idle time eats less than a gigabyte, but with any other version of Windows, it is unlikely that you will use more than 4 gigabytes of RAM. Complicate the task. 4K, as well as the maximum settings. Here we get a slotting of the video card in 100, about 30 FPS, increased twice in comparison with the Quad HD of video memory and almost constant RAM loading. It turns out that for 4K in this game, we only need a relatively powerful chip and more than a gigabyte of video memory. On the processor and RAM 4K resolution does not impose almost any additional load. The next part of the series, the second, differs downgraded graphics relative to the first, and also locks FPS at around 59 frames. Quad HD and also maximum graphics settings. Stable 59 frames with almost full loading of the video card. The requirements for video memory and RAM are the same as in the first part. It was relatively easy. Now 4K and maximum settings. High definition, high card loading. Now you can see the loading of textures and shadows in the distance, at least it became noticeable. 30 FPS with exactly the same RAM and video memory load as the last game. Let's keep the graphics to a minimum. In this case, the FPS does not grow, but the textures and NPCs are loaded only when we get close to them. Here's some more gameplay with maximum graphics settings. It looks great, the FPS is nice, is playable and enjoyable. We are going to the next game. Assassin's Creed Revelations. Quad HD and medium-high graphics settings. The environment could still be tightened, but why? I want to tell you something, they used to be able to make games. This is the most beautiful, Made on the old engine, looks so that there is nothing to complain about and goes in 60 to 70 frames. At the same time, relative to the previous parts, it requires only 100 megabytes more video memory, and 200 more RAM. It would always be so that the graphics grew, and the requirements changed slightly. Well, now 4K resolution, the same medium-high settings. And then the more people in the field of view, the more our FPS differs from the desired 30. In dynamics, the FPS drops to 23, unpleasant, but a fact. There is also such a feature of this game, it often loads only one stream. When it suffocates, it spreads it out on all 12 little by little. The first part loaded 4 threads equally, while the second used 8, but 2 of them were loaded more than the others. If I turn off hyper-threading, the FPS will be smoother, but not higher. Focus on the card after all. Reducing the graphics settings does not give any profit, but the texture loading here is much softer than it was in the second part. This is the power of optimization. But here's what I thought. After all, no one prevents us, if we don't get 30 FPS in 4K, to play with a resolution and set something of our own between 2K and 4K, for example 3200 by 1800. Said and done. In the video card settings, I added 3200 to 1800 with 30 and 60 Hz. These configurations appeared in Windows and in the game. In fact, 3200 by 1800 is 1600 by 900 multiplied by 4, quad 900p so to speak. And this resolution is perfect for this game and this video card. FPS keeps around 40, with a large number of characters does not fall below 35. Moving on to other series of games, everything is clear with the Assassin. Call of Duty World at War, the 5th part of the series, released at a time when the developers of Call of Duty at least somehow interested in the Second World War, not only the Western Front. Guys, let's be honest, United Forces fought against fascism, not just the Western Front or the Red Army. Please do not forget such things. I understand that you have little information about the Second World War in USSR, but I would like to see something like World at War now. AAA projects after all, respect all players, without these bans and renaming. Quad HD, some recommended settings from Full HD remained. 50-60 frames, CPU usage rarely reaches 10%. 4K in this game is just a failure. Notice the logic? When switching from 2K to 4K, the pixel density increases by about 2 times, the video memory usage increases by the same amount, and the FPS decreases by the same amount. 30 FPS is not here, it is uncomfortable to play. Let's try our custom resolution. Now the number of frames is always more than 30, you can play. Did I tell you about logic last time? For this game, it is not observed, but it is a pleasant surprise. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, Quad HD, recommended settings from Full HD. Why recommended? Because if they didn't scratch my eyes in Full HD, they won't do it in higher resolutions. And here we get just a lot of FPS, at least I saw 97. By the way, in Full HD, this game gives out 160-200 FPS when the card is underloaded, the emphasis is on the single stream of my processor. Then my PC decided to hang, I rebooted it, we fly into 4K. And here we get 70-80 FPS. I wonder how the numbers are dancing. Yes, the map in survival is small, but not to say that there was little dynamics, enemies rod, glass flying, transport is on fire, FPS is high. Amazing game. You can play co-op on the big screen comfortably, and the graphics are very decent. By the way, about the co-op. How about a Counter-Strike? Remember the old days, computer clubs, matches with friends after school, or instead of school. Quad HD, maximum settings. In this mode, we get more than 100 FPS at any speed, and the video card load is about half. Here we rest again on a single thread of the stone, but we must pay tribute. The game is not confused by our 12-thread system, and it uses 4/6 threads well. The game is 16 years old if anything, At this time there were stones with configuration 1 core 2 streams. Most likely, the game was tightened, this is a license after all. But 4K resolution. The size of the interface has been reduced to the level of cheat sheets for literature. The card is loaded at 100%, the FPS is kept in the region of hundreds. With approximately the same FPS, 1030 pulls CSGO to Full HD at high settings. Brisk performance. The game is still alive, so come in if anything, there is someone to play with. Yes, who would doubt that the source will go easy in 4K, you say? Then here's another obvious example in 4K. Far Cry first, ultra-high graphics settings. 60 stable FPS, the video card works on 100%. And now another example of the non-linearity of FPS from resolution. Far Cry 3. Quad HD, medium-high settings. With these settings in 1080p, the game produces a stable 60 FPS, but here the FPS is kept at 40-50 FPS, although the difference in the number of pixels is about twice. How's it going in 4K? Bad, very bad. With any graphics settings, there are 20 FPS with freezes. In order not to take up airtime, I will say that in DirectX 9 is exactly the same. Turning on our magic resolution and medium settings. Even without dynamics, there are no 30 frames. Well, minimum settings. This is a completely different bazaar. Looks normal, trees not 2D, a lot of grass, and what else do you need in the third Far Cry? You can if that pull up the texture to medium or even high. And now the game, which was very muddied for optimization, in fact, the game is just ahead of its time. GTA 4. Let's start with Full HD, recommended settings. It is better not to listen to Rockstar in terms of recommended settings, because the FPS lock is not always good, and the settings are not always selected according to the hardware. Recently played Red Dead Redemption 2, 1030 game offered to set ultra textures and shadows, while the resolution of the game chose 720p. What the hell is going on? And recently rolled in Mortal Kombat 11, so the game immediately said, bro, we do not know what settings are needed for 1030, but we know what are needed for 750t, you are something similar. We will also run the benchmark test just in case. Hands off from the keyboard. And that's all. And then you sit and play. Adult serious approach. And what do we have there with GTA? 70-80 FPS. It's time to raise the temperature. Quad HD, I didn't touch the settings. 50-60 FPS, and oddly enough, all 12 processor threads work well. 4K, same settings. Game does not spoil us with 30 FPS. We drop the graphics, and the FPS does not change, but the frame time has gone crazy. No, we can't play like that. Well, the last game, without which you cannot do without, Minecraft. This respected game made on the knee gives out 120 FPS in Quad HD, drawing 16 chunks, with an absolutely idiotic consumption of RAM and underloading everything else. Okay, 4K resolution. More than 60 FPS, the video card has a serious underload, but it eats up more than a gigabyte of video memory. I hesitate to ask what? No more grass, no more zombies. Okay, time for bullying. We put 12 chunks and turn on the shaders. Wow, the card went to warm up, stable 14 FPS and almost fully occupied video memory. In this mode, you can only take beautiful screenshots. There was such a question, is it possible to get at least some resolution in Minecraft 60 FPS with shaders? Resolution 640 by 480, 12 chunks. It's like I forgot to put on my glasses. 60 FPS? No, didn't hear it. 40. 50 is edge. Okay. What are our test results? GT 1030 drags everything in Quad HD on good settings, in 4K is not everywhere. You can play Quad HD or 3200 by 1800 resolution on a 4K screen, if you sit far away, it will look good. But if you really want to just drag in 4K any older games, for you there are cards, for example GTX 770, 1050, RX 460 and 560. They have support for 4K declared, and in 4K in these games, the FPS will be closer to 60. Good luck to all, do not get sick, and see you again.